first race is for DuPage County Clerk. Candidate Jean Kaczmarek will give a 2-minute introduction. Candidate Paul Hines was unable to attend.
My name is Jean Kaczmarek. I'm candidate for DuPage County Clerk. Thank you, League of Women Voters, Roselle and Bloomingdale, for hosting this forum. Tonight, I stand before you filled with a sense of history. This year, we celebrate 100 years of women voting in Illinois. 97 years ago this week, iron-jawed angel Alice Paul was sentenced to prison for the audacity of picketing a wartime president. Her hunger strike escalated the struggle of women's right to vote. I have been an unpaid watchdog of DuPage County government for the past decade. My deep conviction for an accurate, reliable, open, and secure electoral process is the unfinished work of that movement a century ago, the same movement which led to the formation of the League of Women Voters. We must never take the right to vote for granted. The top responsibility of every county clerk in Illinois is administering elections, except for DuPage. Yet our county clerk is paid by far the most for doing the least. My opponent is not here tonight, so I shall speak on his behalf. He's a career politician, patronage hire, double dipper, donated $80,000 to his own campaign. His government staff circulated and notarized his political petitions and attended his fundraisers. My opponent is not unique in DuPage County. I am not campaigning against one person. I am campaigning against a culture. I urge you to join me, take ownership. This must be our campaign, a campaign for a government of due diligence, of ethics, of courage, of impacting positive change, of making democracy work.
Thank you, Jean. Our next race is for the Illinois General Assembly, the 45th District. So we have our two candidates, Jenny Burke and Christine Winger. You guys, you ladies would like to come up? And we flipped in the back, and giving the first introduction is Jenny Burke.
My name is Jenny Burke, and I am running to be your next state representative. My husband and I live in Itasca with our 3 children. Sam is 14. He attends here at Lake Park High School. My daughter Julia is 12, and she attends Peacock. And our son Benjamin is 9, and he goes to school at Franzen. In addition to being a mom, I'm also a legal analyst. I've spent the past 13 years analyzing state and federal legislation. This has given me the opportunity to see just how dysfunctional things are in Springfield. Everywhere I turn, politicians are failing us. Those of you who live in the U46 school district have been forced to pay 12% tax increase due to the errors of a politician. Those of us living on the eastern side of our district have been forced to deal with the extreme noise created by the new runway at O'Hare. My opponent, Christine Winger, chose to celebrate the opening of that runway instead of fighting for our quality of life. We need someone who will fight for our quality of life. That someone is me. Springfield has made it very clear that it has no intention of paying for the basic services that government was meant to provide. Instead of paying for things like school districts and police departments and roads and fire departments, it's pushing those expenses right off onto our property tax bills. And that's pushing people out of the state of Illinois. It's making it impossible for people to buy homes, and it's killing our economy. Last year in the state of Illinois, we paid a record amount of taxes. And instead of buying the things that we need with that money, politicians gave themselves pay raises. They're collecting free health care for life when they retire. And they're even talking about making the income tax hikes permanent. That has to stop. I will fight against that. My name is Jenny Burke, and I will be your next state representative.
Christine?
Good evening, and thank you for inviting me. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for holding this forum and for all that they do to open up our political process and offer voters an opportunity to hear from the candidates and to make an informed decision. I'm Christine Winger, and I'm running for state representative in the 45th District. I've always had a passion for public service. I started volunteering in my community in my mid-20s, and in 2003 decided to run for city council. Today, I am a councilwoman in Wooddale, and I work to be an advocate for residents and business owners. When State Representative Reboletti's seat became open, I believed I could bring my experience at the municipal level with financial discipline, balanced budgets, and responsive government to Springfield, where it is so badly needed. As a project manager at IBM, and now as an investment advisor, I think I bring a unique skill set that could help solve our state's serious financial problems. Illinois is in crisis. The state's credit rating is the worst in the country. The state pays its bills at least 90 days late. Our debt is staggering. Medicaid fraud is rampant, with close to $300 million going to false claims. We trail the nation in job creation. To bring Illinois back, we must create a business climate with less taxation and less constrictive regulations to attract private sector jobs and investment. This campaign is about keeping families together. Often I hear from my friends and neighbors about how their children and grandchildren go off to school and don't come back to Illinois because they simply can't find work here. Many young families, and especially retirees, are being taxed out of their homes because of skyrocketing taxes. The only way to change how state government works is to change who we send to state government. Mike Madigan and his decades of one-party control have failed us. We need to make Illinois work again. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ladies. Okay. We're going to start with Christine answering the first question. And the question is, if you have the opportunity, will you vote to kill the Ellyn Expressway? And with the parentheses, let's fix the Hillside West Chester Strangler on I-290 and the I-290, I-294 merge first. So Christine, would you like to tackle that one?
I would look for more information on pros and cons of that, and then make a educated decision based on community input as well as the different facts that surround it.
Okay, thank you. Jenny, if you have the opportunity, will you vote to kill the Ellyn Expressway?
I think one thing that the state is not doing right now is funding things like our roads. We don't have adequate transportation to get to and from places that we need to go. We're suffering from a lot of construction and a lot of money that's being wasted on deadlines that aren't being met. I think we need to make sure that we're spending our money wisely when we're building our roads. Like Christine, I think I would consult the community. I'd also consult the experts on the runway, or I'm sorry, on the tollway.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jenny's going to answer the next question first. Knowing O'Hare won't close the new runway, what can you do to help the local homeowners with the noise?
Unfortunately, like I said earlier, this is a place where I really feel that politicians in Illinois have failed us. What I need to do now is work with people to fight for the things that we need. Unfortunately, the O'Hare runway has already been built, and there's nothing we can do about that. But what we can do is fight for more property tax exemptions. We can fight for some soundproofing for our homes. And we can also fight to make sure the FAA actually does come back out here and enforces its regulations.
Okay, Christine? Knowing O'Hare won't close the new runway, what can you do to help the local homeowners with the noise?
The noise and air pollution is unacceptable. what I have done is I have sponsored a referendum to be on the ballot in November. And what that does is it calls for the FAA to enforce the noise control rules of 1972, which the aircraft currently are violating them, and that is wrong. So we're moving forward on that. That will be on the ballot, as well as moving forward, I look to support Representative Reboletti's legislation to call upon the Illinois EPA to study the noise and air pollution effects now, so then we can go forward and call out for alternate flight patterns and changing the accepted noise decibel levels and enforce fly quiet rules. We'll have that proof to go forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's hold our applause until the end, please. Okay, Christine, you'll answer the next question first. Economic development is vital to our inner cities. How can we encourage increased private sector investment and not burden the taxpayers as much? Christine?
What we need to do is grow our business climate. We need to encourage businesses to, I feel like I've lost my, okay. So what we need to do is to encourage businesses to come back to Illinois and to stay in Illinois. Right now, when we walk down a street, we see empty storefronts and businesses with empty parking lots. We need to lower our corporate income tax. The ruling class in Springfield has raised our corporate income tax to 9.5%. That's one of the highest in the nation. That is just forcing businesses out of Illinois. We need to stop the overregulation and red tape on them, reduce our corporate income taxes, and then see a business-friendly climate return.
Okay, thank you. Jenny Burke. Economic development is vital to our inner cities. How can we encourage increased private sector investment and not burden the taxpayers as much?
The first thing I think we need to do is we need to start having big businesses pay their share of taxes. Small and medium-sized businesses, who are the ones that do most of the hiring in Illinois, that really support our economy, are suffering under the burden of paying significant taxes. This is because the big corporations like my opponent is pointing to, giving them more tax breaks, those corporations are well off enough to hire lobbyists to go down to Springfield and get themselves tax breaks. That is hurting our economy. We need to have the small and medium-sized businesses have their tax burden eased so that that frees up money so that they can hire the people that they need and get our economy rolling again.
Okay, thank you. Jenny Burke, you'll answer the next question first. According to the Simon Institute poll, a majority of Illinois residents favor letting the 67% income tax expire and return to a 3.75 flat tax rate. However, leaders in Springfield are considering a graduated income tax. Do you support a flat 3.75 income tax rate? And do you support a graduated income tax plan?
I think I've made it very clear that I do not support keeping the income tax increase. This is something that's hurting people. Every single door I knock on, and I've knocked on over 25,000 doors in the last several months, every single person tells me they cannot bear the burden of paying any more taxes. This promise that was made to the residents of Illinois needs to be kept. As far as a graduated tax increase, I think it's something that we may actually need to look at, but I certainly think that no one can afford to pay any more right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Christine Winger, same question. Do you support a flat 3.75% income tax rate? And do you support a graduated income tax plan?
I support rolling back the income tax to the flat 3.75%. I do not support a graduated income tax. What that is going to do is further push out businesses out of Illinois. Businesses are going to Wisconsin, they are going to Indiana and to Michigan, and they are taking their workers with them. And furthermore, on the personal income tax, that at the door I continue to talk with constituents, and they are being taxed out of their homes. We cannot push people out of their homes, and then in turn, we even lose more of our tax base. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Christine Winger, you will answer the next question first. How do you plan to rein in property taxes in Illinois? Speaking of taxes.
We have to grow the economy. Currently, our ruling class in Springfield is over-regulating, they're overtaxing, and what they are doing is pushing out businesses and people, which is essentially what provides revenue to the state to then in turn properly fund education and properly fund the state. So it starts out with the economy. There is no reason why we are last in the nation as far as credit rating, as far as why is our job growth trailing. It's because we are pushing businesses out. I challenge people to drive up north just over the border in Pleasant Prairie, and you will see growth and excitement and parking lots full of workers. And that's what we need to do. We need to return workers to Illinois, and therefore our economy will grow, and that will in turn come back to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Burke, can you please answer the same question? How do you plan to rein in property taxes in Illinois?
I think what we need to do is get our priorities straight in Springfield. Springfield has made it clear, like I said earlier, that it does not want to pay for the essential services of our state. We need to stop giving pay raises to politicians. We need to stop giving them free health care for life when they retire. Money is wasted on things like that. This is about public service. This is not about lining your own pocket. That kind of thing will not stand. People cannot pay any more in property taxes. The state needs to put things like education first. Another thing that the state needs to do is look at offices like the Illinois Auditor General's office. Last year, the state of Illinois paid $12.3 million to dead Medicaid beneficiaries. That's $12.3 million that could have gone to things like our schools. We need to find these errors, find these places where we can save money, and make sure that every single penny is well spent so that we don't end up paying so much on our property taxes.
Okay, thank you. Jenny Burke, you will answer this question first now. Can you describe specific examples of how you have saved your constituents' tax dollars?
Actually, yes, I can. On the school board in Itasca, we've done a number of things that save our school district money. We've tied teacher salaries to CPI through teacher contracts. We've eliminated the 4-6 program, which is when teachers get a 6% increase every year at the end of their, when they choose to retire. We've also made a lot of cuts to a lot of programs, found as many places as we can to save money within the budget, gone through the budget line by line, and not only line by line, but looking in every single line item, where can we cut back, where can we cut back? And all of those things added together have saved our school district a significant amount of money.
Great, thank you. Okay, Christine Winger, same question. Can you describe specific examples of how you have saved your constituents' tax dollars?
Sure. 3 examples, one being in 2004, I worked together with my fellow council people, and we looked at our total compensation package, and what we did is we had dramatically reduced that compensation. As it applied to me, I supported cutting my compensation in half. And what that does is it gives, it essentially has saved the taxpayers thousands of dollars year after year, even to current day. Secondly, in this past cycle, January 2014, we looked at our people that do our insurances in the city of Wooddale, and we changed that provider, and that saved in the first year $60,000 to the taxpayer. And lastly, LED retrofit, a very simple fix to save taxpayers several thousands of dollars. The payback is 2.5 years, and we did implement that successfully. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Okay, we kind of touched upon education, and I have a couple of education questions for you. Let's see, Christine Winger, you're going to go first on this one. Describe your view on the local education programs and why our programs are continually being cut or eliminated.
I am concerned about how education is funded in Illinois. One of the latest initiatives, Senate Bill 16, for example, right here in the Lake Park Community School, High School District, that proposal, us in the suburbs, the proposal would take away $1,489,000 from our funding, which is 75% of state funding. And its processes the request to do such things continue to eat away at our ability to educate the people in the suburbs. And we have had enough, and what we need to do is stop going back to the taxpayers of the district and to our pocketbooks. We need to have Illinois adequately and fairly fund education, and then we can see more programs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jenny Burke, same question. Describe your view on the local education programs and why our programs are continually being cut and eliminated.
One of the main reasons I even decided to run for state representative was the poor situation for our children in Illinois. Illinois has not made education a priority. They have cut their funding year after year after year. I compare it to a teenager. It's like, how much can I get away with this time? And they keep doing it every single year. We can no longer provide all of the programs that we once could. And it's time for Illinois, the state of Illinois, to get its priorities straight and start funding education the way that it should, so that we don't have to cut any more programs from our schools.
Okay, thank you. Now, Jenny Burke, you will answer this question first. Would you support charter schools in your district?
One thing I know from having 3 children is that they all learn very differently. Children need various environments to thrive. I would not support anything that would take any money away from our school districts, but I would absolutely support an opportunity to further a child's education in the environment they need to do the best that they can do.
Okay, thank you. Christine Winger, same question. Would you support charter schools in your district?
I would support charter schools in the district provided that there was a true need for another structure, another building to be built, and as long as there was that true need as far as the population of our students, overcrowding, et cetera, and then that charter school would be held to the same standards as public school. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Christine Winger, you will answer the next question first. The money raised by the temporary tax increase, we're going back to taxes again, has been used to pay past due bills, pensions, and interest on the state debt. How do you plan to deal with these obligations, plus fund education, social services, et cetera, if the temporary tax increase is not renewed?
I would immediately go after wasteful spending. We have $300 million that went to fraudulent Medicaid bills. That's number one. Number two, corruption. Look at the NRI. $54 million to that program. Where has that gotten us? Go line by line through the budget, look for the waste, and then secondly, prioritize how are we addressing our programs in Illinois. What is most important to quality of life in Illinois? What is essential? And that's exactly where I would start, coupled with growing the business economy. Stop pushing out businesses with overregulation. And the businesses, when they do return and stay, that will increase revenue, and then that revenue comes to the state, and we will again be what this great state should be.
Okay, did you answer that question? You did, right? Yeah, did you go first? Okay. All right, Jenny Burke, same question. The money raised by the temporary tax increase has been used to pay past due bills, pensions, and interest on the state debt. How do you plan to deal with these obligations, plus fund education, social services, et cetera, if the temporary tax increase is not renewed?
Again, I don't think I can say it enough. Our state needs to get its priorities in order. We need to stop giving politicians pay raises. We need to stop giving them things like free health care for life. We need to start funding the real necessities that we have as families in the state of Illinois. We need to spend our money on things like education, things like police departments and fire departments, things that we depend on for our everyday use. There is a lot of wasteful spending in Illinois, but that wasteful spending is going to things like politicians. That needs to be over. It's time that we focus on us, our families, and have somebody fight for us in Springfield.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Sort of on the same topic, as a representative, how would you help to address the current pension issues in Illinois? And Jenny, you'll go first. Addressing pension issues.
Well, as we all know, that the pension issue right now is obviously a mess. The Illinois legislature came up with a solution. That solution is now in front of the Illinois Supreme Court. We are in a waiting pattern until we find out what happens with that. The thing is, though, that politicians for years shirked their responsibility to pay for the pensions of teachers, people like teachers. Those people have every right to expect that their money is going to be there when they retire. Every right to expect that what they were promised will be there. Now, we don't know what the Illinois court's going to say when it makes its decision. But what we do know is that we're going to have to move forward. And when we move forward and come up with a new plan, we're going to have everyone there at the table who has a stake in this, bring everyone together and come up with some real solutions that will work for our state.
Okay, thank you. Christine Winger, same question. As a representative, how would you help to address the current pension issues in the state of Illinois?
Senate Bill 1 attempted to address a pension issue. However, it's certainly something that I would have not supported as being part of the legislature. It's widely viewed as going to be unconstitutional. When elected, I want to get started right away to look at the pension system in Illinois. Representative Fichtner has a bill that he presented last session. I want to start with that as a starting point, and some of the overarching principles within that would be a must-pay system. So it's going to be in legislation that the state must pay and pay on time into that system. Currently, that's not in place today. So it allows the General Assembly to skip payments, which is wrong. Secondly, it looks at refinancing the pension debt, which is essentially what we need to do. And that's another reason why we need to get our fiscal house in order. And lastly, examining new people coming into the system and what those benefits would be to them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Christine, you'll answer this next question first. Do you support the increase of the minimum wage from the present $8.25 an hour to the proposed $10 an hour? Why or why not?
I support letting wages grow on their own. What we need to do is we need to create the business climate which was in our state years ago. We need to return the state to what it needs to be, and as businesses come back to Illinois or decide to stay in Illinois, that will create competition, that will gradually increase the wages, and that's what I look forward to encouraging when I'm in Springfield.
Okay, thank you, Christine. Jenny Burke, do you support the increase of the minimum wage from the present $8.25 an hour to the proposed $10 an hour? Why or why not?
I think we can all agree that the current minimum wage is completely insufficient to raise a family. And right now, what we know and what I hear every single day at the door is how much families are struggling. The state of Illinois and the politicians who are running it are saddling our families with more and more taxes all the time. We're paying increasing amounts of property taxes. People are struggling to put food on the table for their families. I think any sort of increase, people would be more than happy to deal with. But honestly, what we really need to do is stop taxing people out of the state. People cannot afford to pay any more taxes.
Okay, thank you. Jenny Burke, you'll answer the next question first. What is your stand on hydraulic fracturing, otherwise known as fracking, in Illinois?
I am against any sort of environmental I do not support fracking. We'll leave it at that.
Okay. Christine Winger, what is your stand on fracking or hydraulic fracturing in the state of Illinois?
There are, fracking will have a place for itself in Illinois, and that is just the reality of it. What we need to focus on is where it takes place, how it's done, how it's regulated, ensuring that it does not disrupt our parks, our natural resources, our quality of life, our tourism industry, and it needs to be watched very carefully in Springfield with our legislatures so it doesn't disrupt our great state. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christine. So you're going to answer the next question first. Would you vote in favor of a constitutional amendment to establish an independent body to draw future boundaries for legislative districts, i.e. an independent map amendment?
I support fair maps in some sort of fashion, and how it's proposed, I would look at, and with my staff and other experts when it's proposed. So fair maps is essential, I believe, to our, essentially our democracy. Right now, the ruling class politicians in Springfield get to pick their voters instead of their voters picking who they want to represent them.
Okay, thank you. Jenny Burke, same question. Will you vote in favor of a constitutional amendment to establish an independent body to draw future boundaries for legislative districts, i.e. the independent map amendment?
I think one thing that we do need to use is some modern technology to organize and distribute the way our districts are drawn. But as to what Ms. Winger is saying, right now the people of Illinois do vote for their representatives and do have the opportunity to choose who their elected official is.
Okay, this is the last question. Jenny Burke, you're going to go first. What common ground do you share with your opponent? This is sort of a question, several of these questions have sort of talked about the Daily Herald and also some of the ads that you have been running. So the question is, how can you work with members of the opposing party, and what common ground do you have? a reach across the aisle kind of a question. Can we talk about reaching across the aisle?
That's my question, right? That's my question.
Yes.
I am more than willing to work with whoever is there when I get to Springfield. Because I think what we need now, and I think that Christine would agree, what we need now is someone who really cares about us, who really wants to fight for us and fight for the things that we need. Now, there are a lot of different opinions, different parties, but I think that what we can learn from the experience and from the situation that we're living with in the state of Illinois is that these politics, these partisan politics, need to be over. We need to be willing to work with each other and move forward. We need to get a job done. We are living in a state which is an embarrassment. I don't want my children to grow up here being embarrassed of where they live. I want them to be proud. And in order to make them proud, we need to teach them to get along with each other, just like the politicians in Springfield need to learn how to get along with each other. And I think that that's the most important thing that we do.
Thank you. Jenny Burke, same question. Can you talk about common ground that you share with your opponent and how you would reach across the aisle to work with your political opposition?
Sure. I believe that both myself and Ms. Burke value talking with the constituency, and I've seen, her campaign out talking with voters, as have I. And furthermore, though, I have been talking with constituents for over a year, and I feel a real connection with District 45, and I look forward to going to Springfield and bringing those values forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to have a 1-minute closing statement. Because Jenny Burke gave her introduction first, Christine Winger will provide the closing statement first.
Did you want me to come here? That's fine. Okay. Illinois is in crisis, and the current one-party control of the legislature has failed us. But our problems are not insurmountable. If we increase the balance in the legislature, we can make Illinois work again. Illinois is a great state. We are at the crossroads of North America. We are a transportation hub. We have some of the greatest universities in the world. We have wonderful natural beauty and plentiful water and resources. We should be leading the nation in job creation, not trailing it. We need to lower our taxes, develop a better business climate, stabilize our financial situation, including pension reform. We must stop the reckless spending. As a council person, I have made respect for the taxpayer the basis of my decision making. I will do so the same as a state representative. We have great people, and our people deserve great schools, great jobs, and great opportunities. That is why I'm running. That is why the Daily Herald has endorsed me today, and that is why I hope to win so that our state can be great again. Thank you.
My opponent brought up a good point, and this is something that I thought about today when I read the Daily Herald endorsement. Although they liked both of us, the Daily Herald chose my opponent to endorse. This, they said, was because of how she connected with the mayors in our district. This is one area where I think there might be a mistake, because what I think is more important is that we, as state representatives, connect with each one of the 117,000 people in our district. Because us, as a group, Our 117,000 people are the people that need help. It's not about the mayors. It's not about politics as usual anymore in Illinois. It's about someone fighting for us. And that is what I will do when I am your next state representative. I will fight for each and every one of you. And I will continue to knock on your door every day that I am in office. And my door will always be open for you.
Okay. Thank you, candidates. I think you will all agree you got a lot of good information there when you go out to make your decision in the polling place. We're going to ask all the questions of both groups of candidates, but you understand that you're only being asked to vote for the district that you live in. So you're going to either be voting for Paul Fichtner or Roland Waller if you live in District 1. And if you live in District 6, you're going to be asked to vote for either Laurie, Nowak, or Kevin Wiley. So we flipped in the back to see who would give their opening statement first. And in District 1, it is Paul Fichtner, and then he will be followed by Roland Waller. And then in District 6, Kevin Wiley will go first, followed by Laurie Nowak. So, Paul, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Paul Fichtner, and I'm running for re-election to the DuPage County Board. I've kept the promises I've made 4 years ago regarding low taxes, government consolidation, and transparencies. A few examples. That portion of your property tax bill, the only part of the tax bill that I am responsible for as a county board member, had a 0% increase for each of the past 4 years. Let me repeat that, 0% increase for each of the past 4 years. Regarding consolidation and shared government services, last year the county board was authorized to examine and pursue consolidation of governmental bodies such as lighting districts and mosquito abatement districts. To date, over $2 million in cost savings have been realized in shared services. My goal for the next term is to double those savings. Regarding transparency, the county now has contract bidding on the internet for vendors to bid against each other in real time and can be observed live by any resident or competing vendor. Meetings can be viewed online, and when I was chairman of the technology committee, the county received the Sunshine Review Award honoring the nation's most transparent websites. Additionally, we are the only county in the state to fund a heroin awareness program for junior highs and high schools to confront this problem head on. It's not only about what I've accomplished, but what I've stopped from being accomplished. I fought red light cameras and won, which is why you will not see any on county-owned roads. I was against video gambling, which is why you will not see video gambling in unincorporated areas. I look forward to discussing the airport noise issue in a few moments. But in conclusion, while other people talk about low taxes, government consolidation, and transparency, I am proud to have delivered, and I ask your support for another term as your county board member. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll hear from Roland Waller.
Yeah, I'm Raleigh Waller, and I'm a candidate for the DuPage County Board in District 1. I was 80 years old in June, and I was thinking of just playing golf and quitting working, but I've decided that there's some issues in my area that require some attention, and one of them is the expansion of O'Hare Field. I've lived in Bensenville 53 years, and I've watched Bensenville being destroyed. And, you know, our previous mayor has spent $20 million in 20 years, along with Craig Johnson, the mayor of Elk Grove Village, and of course they lost. You can't fight City Hall, and they lost the City Hall. However, the DuPage County Board years ago, and even today, have been very supportive of O'Hare at the expense of the residents in Bensenville and Wooddale and Itasca and Roselle and other villages in District 1. So before I decided to run, I took a look at a number of groups that were supposed to be doing something about the O'Hare noise and pollution. And during my walks around to a few thousand people the last 3 months, I mean, I am absolutely devastated by what's happening to people that are living out there, especially on the east-west runway, in the direct path of the east-west runway. So nothing is being done with the Suburban O'Hare Commission. Nothing is being done by the DuPage County Board. And this guy to my right has done absolutely zero about reducing the noise and the pollution. Therefore, that's one of the main reasons I'm running, is because he's done nothing and I'm going to do something. And when I get through with this first remarks, later on I've got a program that, and I'm a businessman, I'm not a politician, and I've actually got a program that will reduce noise and pollution. It's not a lot of hearsay about getting stories in the paper, et cetera.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, now we'll hear from the District 6 candidates, and Kevin Wiley will go first.
Hi, my name is Kevin Wiley, and I'm running for DuPage County Board, District 6. I'll do a quick introduction, and we're going to get into the details about the issues and upcoming questions, I'm sure. I'm a colonel in the United States Army Reserve. I've been mobilized 5 of the last 12 years, and I've learned through that experience, both as a leader and developed as an individual. I've seen people struggle, and I've helped them through their struggles, overseas as well as our soldiers. I have been a battalion commander, so I know what it's like to actually work with fellow company commanders and actually get them to take care of the 5 companies or the 500 people that we had in our command, overseeing 3 deployments. So again, it's a cultural awareness. I'm currently the operations officer for the 351 Civil Affairs Command. So as a result of that command and that responsibility, we oversee all of the Pacific Rim countries. So I've got a great deal of interest and understanding of diverse cultural needs that our community shares, and I'm looking to bring that experience back to District 6. Additionally, I'm a director at the fastest growing company in the United States of America. We've gone from $100 million in 2007 to $14 billion last year. So I know something about how to get things done, process improvements, and actually keeping the eye on the ball and keeping focus about what's important to deliver value for our customers. I work in the Center of Excellence for our largest customer, and it's a very demanding job that we have, but it's a very demanding, it's a very commanding skill that we bring to the table here too. I'm also a trustee at the Bartlett Fire Protection District. In the 3 years that I've been on that fire district, we've renegotiated union contracts, we've dealt with some labor issues, we've actually built out Station 3, we brought a project in under budget, early and under budget. We've managed to balance our budget every year, and we've received the award for financial transparency. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to you more in a minute.
Thank you. Laurie Nowak, opening statements.
Hi, my name is Laurie Nowak, and for the past 2 years, I have been your DuPage County Board member in District 6. When I first ran in 2012 on the 18-member county board, there had only been 1 woman representing DuPage County and way too many yes men. Politics as usual holds us back. And instead, I've proven myself to be a relentlessly refreshing and independent voice on the board, even when the right choice is not the popular choice among establishment politicians. I'm energetic and engaged and determined to continue my work on the ground to be an advocate for my constituents and change the culture of Illinois politics to be more open, interactive, and proactive to better serve you. I've promoted and voted for local government ethics reform to curb waste and fraud. I've partnered with community leaders, nonprofit organizations, and other advocates to help seniors, jobless veterans, the homeless, and those who are food insecure in DuPage County. I've advocated for taxpayers and homeowners to prevent a rain tax to ensure that consolidation actually happens and isn't just a symbolic catchphrase. I've fought to reinvest and grow the tax base and also support public-private partnerships. And lastly, I have been a very vocal advocate to keep taxpayer money out of the pockets of politicians in DuPage County. And I plan to continue all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Laurie will be asked the first question. Since District 1 started, we're going to go with District 6 to start the questioning. And since Kevin had the opening statement, Laurie will answer the question first. And just so you know, I am timing this, and our last question will be read at 8 o'clock. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about taxes. Laurie, talk about if you are for or against freezing property taxes.
Okay, well, in DuPage County, as Paul mentioned, that is what we've done at the county level. And I think that at the county level, that there are a lot of ways to continue that. With consolidation, making sure that things are streamlined and that there's not duplications in local government, collaborating together, there's a lot of cost-saving opportunities. Within the county, I think that what we can do to keep taxes at the county level from going up is to make sure that things like the Forest Preserve sheriffs and the sheriff's departments are better collaborating together along with municipalities. To make sure that when there's township services that are separate from county services, that there's actually an additional benefit and not just an additional cost. I think that departments in the county should all be going through lean training, not just the Health and Human Services Department, and that's something I've been pushing for. Just today, the Sheriff's Department came to us asking for more money, but my very first response to them was, have you gone through lean training to make sure that there's not duplications within your department that...
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Next person to answer the question is your opponent, Kevin Wiley.
So when it comes to consolidation and when it comes to understanding the processes about lean training isn't getting anything done. It's about the lean processes and the Six Sigma process to understand where we've got overlap, where we've got redundancy, and being able to consolidate it. I've clearly had to go through that as we've gone through in my corporation, merger after merger. So I've participated in some tough decisions around how to cut costs. In the end, it produces a better service for the consumer. It produces better prices for everybody, and that's why we need to stay focused in on that. The county government is a good and effective place of organization, but if you rest on your laurels, you're going to fail. And that's where there are $435 million budget right now, and it still needs to be trimmed. My opponent talks about how she initiated lean training. That's not true. My opponent talks about how she participated in a lot of those reductions on the process. You can go check the record. She has made no impact whatsoever and proposed no initiatives to reduce cost. You can expect that I will be doing this. I will be doing the same. No, I don't think so. I will be leading that effort and that dialogue to reduce the cost. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Raleigh Waller will answer the question first for District 1. Are you for or against freezing property taxes?
Is it P or me?
That's for you.
Okay. I'm definitely in favor of freezing them. And the other thing that really is a shock to me is when I walk around and talk to homes, people ask, why are the homes being devalued but the taxes go up? I mean, if home values are going down, shouldn't taxes go down? So that's an issue that I think we need to address. But I think that we should not only freeze them, but we should lower them. People can hardly pay their bills today, and I think they're being overtaxed.
Okay, thank you. Paul Fichtner, are you for or against freezing property taxes?
Well, yes, not only am I for property tax freeze, but through my leadership, I've been the chairman of the Finance Committee for the past 4 years. We've actually effected a property tax freeze for that portion of the tax bill that we're responsible for. The other taxes have gone up for the other governmental entities. All I know is my position, my job, has been successful in keeping property taxes flat. I don't think there's any other governmental entity in DuPage County, or who knows where else, that has kept property taxes at 0% for the past few years. How have we done that? Well, we've instituted a 5-year budgetary plan. When I first got on the board, we didn't have a 5-year plan. We just had year-by-year budgeting. We need to see what cliffs are going to occur over the future, financial cliffs. Any project over $250,000 has to have a follow-up with what it entails over the future. We have a great staff, and most importantly, we keep our personnel count as flat as possible through attrition. We don't lay off anybody, but we keep our staff flat through attrition, and that helps us keep property taxes flat.
Thank you. Paul Fichtner, you will now answer this question first. Are you for or against raising county board members' pay?
County board members' pay by law has to be determined 3 months prior to the election, and that makes sense. We're in a 4-year term. The public needs to know what the situation is with the pay going forward. There has been 0% increase over the past 10 years for county board pay. Going forward, we voted on a 0022, so no increase in pay over the next 2 years, and then the following 2 years is a 2%. That averages 1% a year over the next 4 years, and that's after 0% over the past 10 years. So we have increased it very minimally. It comes out to about $10 a week, and after 10 years of flat, it was time to do that.
Okay, thank you. Raleigh Waller, same question. Are you for or against raising county board pay?
Well, I'm definitely against it, and I was surprised that you voted for it, considering how much you're worth. And you people have got part-time jobs. You should be ashamed of yourself to give you any kind of a raise. You know, the people that are footing the bill, you got a $420 million budget that you're very proud of. You know, according to the Daily Herald, the bulk of it's being spent on payroll. You know, you got $1 million that it's being spent on human resources. How about spending $10 or $15 or $20 million for the people, which includes the handicapped, the mentally retarded, veterans, the seniors? I mean, it's, to me, this, you know, you're so proud of this finance committee that, to me, the money's being spent. You could take $100 million out of through consolidation and take that $100 million and use for matching funds and do something for the people.
Okay, thank you. All right, District 6 candidates. Kevin, we'll start with you. Are you for or against raising county board pay?
Well, in this particular, that would be a fictitious question for me. In this particular case, they did raise the pay, and they did take away stipends. So it was revenue neutral on the budget, and I would have considered both. From where I stand, I don't need any additional income for the services that I'm hoping to render. I felt like it was inappropriate, but I think Paul makes some excellent points that the pay has not been raised in over 10 years, and as a result, to say that they're going to get a 4% pay raise over a 14-year period of time, I don't think if that was an employee, that would be an outrageous expectation. That said, my opponent holds this out as her one and shining glowing moment as being fiscally responsible. And if you do the math on it, the amount of the pay is infinitesimal when it comes to the $435 million budget. It's infinitesimal in terms of the overall salary. And the actual pay raise, you pay us to be effective board members. You pay us to go there and have influence with our fellow board members. In this particular case, she had no influence with her fellow board members to prevent it from going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Laurie Nowak, same question. Are you for or against raising county board members' pay?
I proudly voted against the pay raises for not only county board members, but for all other county politicians whose raises and salaries were on the table. Not only that, I actually proposed that we start to incrementally decrease the pay for these part-time politicians. We did eliminate stipends, as Mr. Wiley said, but that was not initially on the table, and it actually came because of government watchdogs and constituents and outsider politicians like myself and others who stood up and said that these kind of stipends and this kind of pocket padding have to end. For example, some of the county workers are not even making a living wage, so I would rather see them getting a raise, not myself. We also need to look at bloated executive salaries. And also the claim that this is my one and only fiscally responsible vote is clearly false, but as you'll see, there's going to be probably more exaggerations coming from my right, but that's okay. And the fellow board members that he said I couldn't influence, I feel that he would just be voting along with them, so I'm not sure that that's who you really want there.
Okay, thank you. All right, Laurie, we'll start with you this time. And the next question is, what alternative sources of revenue do you see in addition to property taxes for the county?
Well, I think that's kind of a false place to start. I don't think that the county really needs to look for additional sources of revenue right now. I think increasing sales tax is one thing that has been on the rise lately, and that has helped the county tremendously. And of course, you know, rebounding from the recession and having a stronger economy is something that benefits us in general, not just when it comes to the county budget. But again, I think that looking for ways to streamline things, increase efficiency, and consolidate is probably more important for looking, you know, under every stone and in every taxpayer's pocket. That's absolutely not where we need to go.
Okay, thank you. Kevin Wiley, what alternative sources of revenue do you see in addition to property taxes?
The county is very blessed as compared to most local government entities, and has got a very diverse portfolio of income resources. So when we talk about property taxes, that accounts for $66 million of a $35 million budget. And I do not propose that we increase any of that we live within our means, and that any kind of a future increase in revenue should come from the fact that we're effective at actually increasing the economic prosperity of our citizens across the county. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Waller, same question for District 1. What alternative sources of revenue do you see in addition to property taxes for the county?
Well, I've given some thought to that. And in fact, I'm exploring an idea that I'd like to announce that I think could be a real windfall for DuPage County. And one of the issues that was addressed to both Paul and I at our endorsement interview was what would we do with the fairgrounds in terms of either moving it, keeping it, or using it for other alternative sources to raise funds. So I've been looking at that. And I think I've got a fantastic concept, which is I've had discussions with Ravinia, and we could have a Ravinia West in that fairgrounds. It's going to take some money to build a stadium and to make the grounds so it's conducive for picnicking. But I think that could be a huge windfall, not only for Ravinia, but for the DuPage County. But that's one idea that I'm working on. That's basically what I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Paul Fichtner, what alternative sources of revenue do you see for the county in addition to property taxes?
I don't see any additional revenue sources for the county in addition to property taxes and the other revenue sources that we have. I don't want to increase revenues. I want to look at minimizing expenses. We've been able to, again, keep property taxes flat for the past 4 years while giving raises to all of our employees. So I don't see any need to look for any other revenue source than we already have.
Okay, thank you. This question, Paul will go first from District 1, since Raleigh went first. The last question for District 1. The county isn't using RTA tax money for public transportation. Do you agree with that policy? Paul? Public transportation.
The RTA money, what RTA money?
Just reading the question.
Any money we receive goes into a general fund to be divided up into wants and needs of the county. We have senior services, we have public transportation, we have the court system, we have the coroner, we have the sheriff, we have the state's attorney. And we do an efficient job of determining what those needs and wants are annually during our budget process. So that money goes into public transportation through the general fund during the budget time as it's allocated appropriately.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Raleigh, can you tackle that question? It says, the county isn't using RTA tax money for public transportation. Do you agree with that policy? Or maybe you want to correct the questioner if there's a problem with the question.
I'm not sure what the question is, because I mean, I'm not that familiar with RTA being used by the board. I mean, I'm not on the board, but are we using RTA money?
Well, maybe you could just talk about your position on public transportation.
Okay, well, I have a position on it. I feel that that the middle class, the middle lower class, is being shortchanged in DuPage County. I think we should be expanding pace. I think we should be doing some things to make it easier for people to get to work, easier to even go to the store if they want to go a couple miles away. I think that we need a transit system that is a lot more sophisticated than what we currently have. And I don't think the board has done a very good job in really looking at how they can expand this to help even the handicapped and the people that can't afford to even drive their car today with the gasoline prices. I think the board could do a lot more in solving that problem.
Okay, thank you. District 6, the question is, the county isn't using RTA tax money for public transportation. Do you agree with that policy?
So the question really is about public transportation, and it is about how we do our budgeting for public transportation. We got to have a vision, as Paul has already indicated, about a 5-year vision about where we're going to take the county and what the economic needs of the county are and where it belongs. In District 6, we have the most open land space of any of the other districts. And so it's going to be very costly. It's going to be very inefficient to actually run a massive scale of public transportation like you see in the city. And therefore, the funds would be misplaced there for that activity. However, we should look in the other districts perhaps to see if that doesn't make sense to actually continue to augment. But the bottom line is not necessarily a subsidy to the poor. It's about efficient transportation. That's what we have to stay focused in on, is what's in the best interest of the business needs as well as the residents' needs throughout this county.
Thank you. Laurie, Nowak, same question. The county isn't using RTA tax money for public transportation. Do you agree with that policy?
No, I don't. And actually in District 6, we just had a lunch and learn with PACE the other day. And if you look at a map of where the bus routes are, you'll see them running all throughout the north, the south, the east, but there is a huge gap in District 6 in the northwest. The thought that we couldn't implement some kind of bus route, for example, up and down 59. We have huge pockets of need in Hanover Park, in West Chicago, and if we want to increase our workforce, we need to make sure that people who are making minimum wage and cannot necessarily afford a car, gas price, maintenance, all that goes along with it, that they are able to be self-sustaining and getting out to their jobs. Right now, if it's not practical to implement an entire, bus route, then I think we need to look at ways that we can increase some of the funding that goes to getting seniors and disabled people in those call and ride with the cab systems that are set up. And it's really got to be one or another. We can't say there's no solutions.
Thank you. You get to answer the next question first. So the question is, do you see ways to save money for the county and cut the carbon footprint? Laurie?
Why, yes, I do. And I'm vice chair for the environmental committee. I am the only county board member who has really participated with the Green Government Council, and that is basically their #1 goal. With energy efficiency, that's been done. There's school districts who have saved millions of dollars by, being more efficient. And also, obviously, that's good for taxpayers. It's good for the kids. It's educational. There's a lot of other ways, and these kind of things have rippling good effects. So, for example, the community garden program that I had promoted and started implementing, that also helps our neighbors in need who can't put food on their table. It teaches skills, and all of these things have incalculable benefits as well as monetary benefits as well. Again, partnering with other people, the county cannot take everything on ourselves. It's important that we maintain strong partnerships with groups like Sierra Club and Scarce, who also do that work. Thanks.
Kevin, do you see ways to save money for the county and cut the carbon footprint?
So you can calculate savings. It's very important to understand that's a very hard number. And you can actually, through public-private partnerships, leverage the opportunities to decrease the carbon footprint, enhance what we're trying to do. Natural gas is one of those areas, working with some of the local employers that have a densely populated campuses, leveraging the vehicles that they're using to get around those campuses, to include the county campus would be an example, and slowly and meticulously create opportunities throughout the county by working with these public-private partnerships that are out there. Everybody is concerned about about saving money, and so when producing the opportunity to decrease costs, whether it's private business or whether or not it is a government entity, they'll be jumping on it. Unfortunately, it is a difficult task in this particular climate right now. Other than great subsidies for most of the green initiatives that are out there, there's not much of an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Raleigh Waller, you'll answer the question first. Do you see ways to save money for the county and cut the carbon footprint?
Well, as far as saving money for the county, I think that a lot more could be done to consolidate within the total payroll that the county board has. I'm not on the board, so I can't speak to how many people they've got, but it would seem to me that when you're spending the bulk of your $420+ million on payroll, that something can be done to operate a lot more efficiently. That's the only comment that I've got.
Thank you. Paul Fichtner, do you see ways to save money for the county and cut the carbon footprint?
Well, some of the ways we've been cutting the carbon footprint is we currently have a fleet of vehicles that run on alternative fuels. When we do building, we do LEED certified building, which is gold, silver, or bronze. We usually go for gold LEED certified building, which creates energy efficiencies. We have efficient windows. There's hundreds of windows that were recently replaced at the courthouse, and those are all top-rated efficient windows. We have new lighting that turn off when nobody's in the room, turn on later. We have thermostats that go up and down depending on the time of day. So as far as savings, yes, there are savings, but it's over the long term, and we have to balance the upfront cost with the long-term savings, and all of these I've mentioned do save in the long run. It may take 10 years, but there are savings there.
Thank you. Okay, we are getting very short on time, so I think we might have time for 2 more questions. Paul, you'll answer this question first. Unincorporated county has property that has adult entertainment on it. Do you think these businesses should be eliminated, and how would you do it?
I wish they could be eliminated, but similar to the medical marijuana situation, zoning rules from the federal Supreme Court decided means you have to allow these uses. You can limit them, but you have to allow them. So they have to be X number of feet away from schools, parks, et cetera. But you cannot eliminate them. That's Supreme Court decisions regarding adult entertainment. It's a freedom of speech thing, whatever. I don't agree with it, but that's the constraints we have to live in. So I don't like it, but we limit them as much as possible, but we can't get rid of them.
Okay, thank you. Raleigh Waller, same question. Do you think that adult entertainment should be eliminated, and how would you do it?
Yeah, I think I'm for eliminating it. I think that it's not very conducive for raising families around it. I think that kind of revenue we don't need. I put it in the same category as the heroin drug problem we've got. I think we've got to spend more time on trying to find out where the heroin is coming from. It's my understanding a bulk of it's coming from the Eisenhower, and 99% of it's coming from Afghanistan. So, I mean, whether or not this is related to what you've asked, I think that those are a couple of areas I would concentrate on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for District 6, Kevin Wiley, you'll answer first. Unincorporated county property has adult entertainment. Do you think these businesses should be eliminated, and how would you do it?
As much as we'd like to control those activities, as in prohibiting them, it is simply not possible to do that. However, it is possible to control them and make sure that they don't create the nuisance to the community around them and put the controls on them on them necessary to control the damage that they do in communities, and make sure that they're being placed in areas that are less damaging to the community, and encouraging a partnership for those folks, if you will, that are going to demand that they do these kind of things, to encourage them to adhere and respect the rights of all the neighbors around them. Thank you.
Thank you. Laurie, same question. Adult entertainment, would you be in favor of eliminating it, and how would you do it?
Sure. Well, as a young woman who, is growing up in a world where no one seems to bat an eye if there's a county board that's dominated by 17 men and 1 woman, but I think people would feel that their feathers are ruffled if those numbers were reversed. I think that, empowering young women in general is something that we need to look for opportunities to do. Even though the county cannot, even though the county cannot prohibit these, I think that we do need to set limits to the extent that we can. But unfortunately, in this situation, it's kind of like the phrase that you hear thrown around. Well, voters have to decide. I mean, consumers also ultimately have choices, and if consumers don't want this in DuPage County, that's really going to be what shuts down the business. So, and I would be okay with that.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
thanks.
Okay, Laurie, you will answer this question first. DuPage County has a growing population of ethnic minorities. What steps will you take to encourage more ethnic minority participation in DuPage County government and politics?
Sure. Well, that's something that I have been doing. Again, I hate to make comparisons to the past, but when I was first running on the board, there was only 1 person who spoke another language, and to this day on the board, there's only 1 person who speaks another language other than English, and that's myself. I think that we really do need to, and of course, I'm not going to go out and learn 7 new languages so that I can communicate with every single person, but I think it's important to have partnerships with people to make sure that, people who are coming to this country are able to access opportunities. I have gone out and participated in different cultural events. My door has been open, and I think working with community leaders to make sure that they know that local government officials are not just there for the people who have been established here for a long time, but that this is a melting pot, and that's where the focus needs to be. We need to make sure that people feel like their voice can be heard, and that they're also empowered, not just with county business, but also with voting and civic engagement in general.
Thank you. Kevin Wiley, same question. Steps you will take to encourage more ethnic minority participation in DuPage County?
So reaching out to every citizen is a key part of any successful campaign, as well as a legislative body. We need to embrace all of our citizens and embrace their prosperity, not the county government's prosperity. So as a result, you can count on me to be reaching out and working with the mayors and working with the various petitioners and encouraging them to reach out and build their lives within our community. As a part of that, of course, they're going to get to know a little bit about our government and hopefully get to know that the constitutional rights that we have, both at the national level and in the state level, are the very key to what's going to ensure their prosperity and their rights here in this country. And so it is helping them understand that there's a reason that they came here. This is how we built up our country over the 230-plus years that we've been around, and that they are now just a part of that entire successful tradition of success for all minorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Raleigh Waller, ethnic minorities and increasing participation in DuPage County government and politics. Steps you will take.
Well, first of all, there are more Hispanics in District 1 than in any district in DuPage County. Bensonville itself is probably, when I moved there in 1960, there was probably 2% Hispanic and Afro-American. Today it's like 90. So I've spent a lot of time looking at this issue. During the campaign, I've been attending, there's a St. Alexis Church, which is 95% Hispanic. I've gotten to know the Hispanics and find out what their problems are and what their issues are. And one of the things that I feel that the DuPage County Board could be doing is to do something about the immigration bill. They spend several $100,000 with lobbyists. Why not use them to put some pressure on? We have an immigration bill that's been passed, in the Senate, and it's sitting there in the House doing nothing. And even though they're working basically on state issues, I think there could be some things done to help this immigration bill get passed.
Okay, thank you. Paul Fichtner, steps you will take to encourage more ethnic minority participation in DuPage County government and politics.
Well, recently, as Raleigh mentioned, we do have a big minority population in District 1, and toward that end, we actually had the first Hispanic elected to the DuPage County Board a few short years ago, so who I supported vociferously. So there are steps being taken to slowly bring the minority population into county government. They have been active, and they will continue to be. Something else I think we can do, and I'll look forward to doing this, and I've actually discussed this with Chairman Cronin, is we appoint a series of committees and commissioners for various commissions, lighting districts, mosquito abatement districts, and I think we could be more proactive in bringing minorities onto that so they can realize what that civic involvement is all about, and then build a base from there so they can move up to other offices.
Thank you. All right, it's time for closing statements now, and since District 1 opened, District 6 will open. We'll start the closing statements, and because Kevin Wiley went first on the intro, Laurie Nowak will go first on the closing statement. Laurie?
As a young adult in DuPage, I have a vested interest in the future of the county. I want DuPage to be a place where residents both my age and my parents' age can afford to live and thrive. I'm dedicated to being a hands-on board member. I'm able to work with other elected officials when it benefits the district, yet I'm strong enough to stand up against establishment politics that hurts taxpayers. I maintain direct communication with thousands of residents. I have a strong presence and participation in the community, and like I said, I'm dedicated to changing the culture of the county. Responsibility and responsiveness are not just talking points. It's about communication, and it's about the votes that we take. These are binding actions. These are binding actions to let residents know whether we're on their side or whether we're on the side of pay-to-play politics as usual. So I have a demonstrated record with this, and I would love your support again in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Wiley, your closing statement.
I've lived in the district for 27 years. I go to work every day. I pay a mortgage. I pay my property taxes to include the 34% pay increase or tax increases that we've experienced over the last 3 years. I pay more in that increase than my brother, who lives in Michigan in a similar home, pays in his entire property tax. And yet their schools are better, their police have been rated higher, and their fire department is, well, a little less because I'm on the fire department. So, bottom line up front is my opponent does none of the above. Simply lacks the experiences in life to understand what we are going through on a day-to-day basis, simply lacks the experiences of understanding what it was like when I moved here in 1988 to build my family, to send my kids to these schools, to raise them, simply lacks the experience to understand what you go through on a day-to-day basis and what your hopes and aspirations are. I'm looking to bring that experience to this county board and to fight for you and fight for all the taxpayers that are within District 6. Thank you.
Thank you. Raleigh Waller will go first for District 1 in closing statements. Raleigh?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity at my age to be doing this kind of a thing. I feel invigorated about, I've never run for public office before. I'm a businessman. I'm not a politician. I've started 3 businesses in DuPage and 2 downtown Chicago. I was in the advertising agency business, worked at Leo Burnett Company for 10 years. So I've been told that I have vision on various things like the Ravinia West idea, and there's some other things that I'm working on, even though I'm not even on the board yet. But one of the things that I'm very proud of is that I have developed a program for O'Hare noise and pollution. And if you go and visit a website, which is reduceoharenoise.org, you will see a plan that we put together. We had a town hall meeting the other day, and we presented it. But I feel also that Paul has become very complacent. after been on the board all these years, and I can bring a young guy bringing a new dimension to the board.
Thank you. Paul, your closing statement?
Thank you. Well, in addition to my record of minimizing property taxes, government consolidation, and transparency, I have a proven record as a fighter against O'Hare noise through FAA testimony, speaking at rallies, and getting my district's view into the news media to anyone that will listen. And recently, I've been appointed chairman of a subcommittee to coordinate O'Hare noise, anti-O'Hare noise efforts with municipalities, neighborhood groups, and anti-noise sound organizations. We have a chance to work on that and really help with correcting the horrendous noise situation in those neighborhoods. I'm also proud to have the endorsement of 5 of the district's nonpartisan mayors who recognize my leadership in keeping taxes low and working with them on O'Hare noise issues. So compare and contrast DuPage County with the rest of the state. Springfield raises taxes. We have kept them the same 4 years in a row. The state's bond rating is the worst in the country, but DuPage County has a AAA rating. And while Springfield talks about consolidation, DuPage has actually started to accomplish it. I thank you, and I ask for your vote for another term.
Thank you. Thank you, all the candidates. Shannon Burns will begin our segment on the DuPage County Forest Preserve Board, District 6. Shannon?
Hi, I'm Shannon Burns. I'm the incumbent Forest Preserve Commissioner for District 6 in DuPage County. Most of us in this room love nature, but it's not enough to just love nature. Nature can't take care of itself anymore. And that's why we have forest preserves. But it's not enough to simply have forest preserves either. We need someone to direct the care of nature, and that's why we have Forest Preserve Commissioners. It's not enough to just have commissioners either. We need commissioners who are educated about the care and maintenance of nature if we want to protect our open space. And because our resources are limited and because the people who use our forest preserves have varied interests in how they would like the land to be used, we need commissioners who are educated in financial management and who are skilled in working with people. But you know what? That's still not enough. After serving as your commissioner in District 6 since 2012, I know now that it is not enough to bring experience, education, and skill to the job of Forest Preserve Commissioner. You can't do this job unless you have a driving passion to fuel the work that needs to be done. And that passion is for continued learning about how to work with the land and how to protect nature. That passion is for working with people, not just talking to them, but working with them to find solutions. And that passion is for the hard work that's involved in the day-to-day activities of managing our land. My passion for our open space in DuPage County, my passion for our forest preserves is why I ran for this office in 2010. It's why I ran again and won in 2012. And that same passion is why I'm asking for your vote to re-elect me, Shannon Burns, as your commissioner in District 6. I love our forest preserves, and I have been unspeakably proud to represent you in District 6. I look forward to continuing to use my passion, skills, and experience to make our forest preserves even better in my next term, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Now we'll hear from Al Murphy.
Good afternoon, everybody, or evening, everyone. My name is Al Murphy, and I'm running for Forest Preserve Commissioner, District 6. My passion for running for Forest Preserve arose while I had 2 sons in the Boy Scout program. I have 2 sons that are Eagle Scouts, and in the last 10 years, I have probably spent more time in the preserves than any of your current commissioners. I've seen many of the great things the Forest Preserve has to offer, but I also seen some areas that need a little tune-up. As a businessman in West Chicago, I've learned to grasp the financial needs and how to run a business, manage people, and manage resources. I hope that you will consider me for your vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I want to remind the audience that any video taken of the candidates is not to be used for any type of advertising. That's a league policy. Thank you. So I have one question here. I hope the questioners are collecting some more questions. The question is, what is your position on the maintenance facility on Mack Road and why? And Al, we'll start with you.
The current maintenance facility on Mack Road is old, deteriorated, dilapidated, and falling down nearly. It was built 40 years ago. The wood sill plates at the bottom of the pole barn are rusting out, are rotting out, and it's about ready to fall over. The mechanics are working on a gravel floor. It needs to be replaced. It's been talked about for the last 8 to 10 years. It's actually been designed twice by 2 different architectural firms. It needs to be done. There's been enough talk about it. It's time to get it done. One of the most recent things was they have funding, $10 million funding for a $12.5 million project. The City of Warrenville has proposed bringing sewer and water to the proposed facility for a cost of $6 million. I looked at,
Okay, thank you.
yep.
So-
Shannon, same question. Your position on the maintenance facility on Mack Road and why?
The maintenance facility on Mack Road is the reason I got involved in the Forest Preserve to begin with, although it is not the only reason I'm interested in staying there now. It is absolutely unconscionable from a moral perspective and from a business perspective that we have not done something to get better working conditions for the men and women who work on our fleet. However, I continue to oppose placing the building on Mack Road. The site is too wet, there's no sewer and water on the site. All of our trucks would be exiting on a 2-lane road that is not designed for that kind of traffic. And I am not convinced that we have done adequate due diligence in terms of a needs assessment, development of criteria, things that would justify putting a building in one place or another. That said, I believe it may well end up at Mack Road, and if it does, I am confident that I have influenced the board and the staff enough at this point that it will be a smaller building with better screening so that residents don't have to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. All right, Shannon, you'll answer this question first. How would or did you vote on this year's budget? How would or did you vote on the tax levy?
The Forest Preserve Board increased the tax levy slightly this year, and I voted to approve that. It came to about $1.31 per household, which is not a justification for raising taxes. However, the Forest Preserve leverages grant money and intergovernmental agreements and private money to bring in money to do projects. So many of our projects are funded by private money and don't use property tax dollars. The problem with that is we then have to maintain that using our money, our property tax dollars. We have to maintain everything that we build with grant money into perpetuity. And that is why I voted to increase our tax levy slightly this year. We did, however, for the first time this year, approve a budget that's based on historical accounting rather than on how much money we could bring in. And that saved us several $1 million that we're rolling back into infrastructure improvements for technology. I'm confident that in the future, that money will be able to be rolled back into tax decreases or into at least a flat budget.
Thank you. Al, now your turn. How would or did you vote on this year's budget? How would or did you vote on the tax levy?
Well, I'm not a Forest Preserve Commissioner, but as an alderman for the city of West Chicago, the last 7 years, we have come under budget. The last 4 years, we have not raised our levy whatsoever. I think through proper budgeting, through proper expense control, I think the Forest Preserve can be run with no increase in levy and manage what we have. We have to learn to operate within our means, and that's currently not being done. The Forest Preserve has come back for an increase in the levy this year. It may not sound like much, but if everybody increased their levy by 1.5%, we would be in deep trouble. You've got to manage what you have, learn to live within your means.
Thank you. Okay, so Al, you'll answer this question first. What should the Forest Preserve's position be on the new stormwater raw tax, or is it rain tax?
Rain tax.
Rain tax.
Rain tax. Okay, sorry, couldn't read it.
Well, my understanding is if it gets passed, the rain tax would work at the county stormwater level, or stormwater management committee, and work with the county. The rain tax is not going to be part of the Forest Preserve operational budget. However, the Forest Preserve has become a great depository for much of the storm water. The stormwater management at the county and the Forest Preserve have worked greatly to reduce flooding along the east branch and the west branch of the DuPage River.
Thank you. Shannon, what should the Forest Preserve's position be on the new stormwater rain tax?
Okay. That's House Bill 1522 that was passed last year, and it gave DuPage County 2 years in which to study the issue before implementing it's a utility fee, it's not exactly a tax. And the Forest Preserve has spent over $150 million in the last 30 years to mitigate flooding and stormwater, so we already do a great deal to take care of stormwater. That said, we should not be different from the rest of the community. It's likely that the people in the community will be taxed, businesses, churches, and homes, for the amount of their structures that are paved over that can't absorb, that cause stormwater runoff. And the Forest Preserve should pay that same tax for any place that we have surfaces that aren't permeable. Surfaces that contribute to flooding rather than help prevent it. So one of the things that I think the Forest Preserve can do a better job of is partnering with other agencies to educate the community and help them figure out ways to reduce their part of the utility fee for stormwater.
Thank you. Okay, Shannon, you'll answer this question first. If elected or re-elected, what would be your main 2 priorities?
I have many priorities, but I've been a constant champion of better public involvement from the beginning. We do not do a good job of responding to the public. We do not do a good job of taking their concerns and their suggestions seriously. I have proposed and continue to lobby for some programs that increase empowerment of volunteers to do projects on their own or to do projects when they back up to the Forest Preserve. That's one of my priorities. Another priority is to continue to grow programs that fund projects and fund maintenance without using property tax dollars. We've got some of those programs already in place, and we've got more coming down the road. I also think that we've got to improve our technology. Right now, anyone who wants a dog park permit has to either do it through the mail or drive to our building 8:30 a.m. to 4 in the afternoon during weekdays to get that dog park permit. It's absurd that you can't get that online, and that will be coming soon.
Thank you. Al, if elected or re-elected, what would be your main 2 priorities?
One would be to get the Forest Preserve more accessible for people with special needs. Right now, the Forest Preserve, in my opinion, does not do an adequate job of providing access to people that have mobility concerns or any type of handicap or special need. Second thing I would focus on is getting the maintenance facility built, because it's something that is highly needed. We can do it, and we can do it cheaper. The city of Warrenville has proposed providing sewer and water to the proposed maintenance facility at a cost of $6 million. The city of West Chicago can provide the same sewer and water to the same facility, the same location, for a cost of $2 million. That's $4 million savings. That's a huge amount of money that we could put back into restoration of the land, increasing our maintenance of bike trails, that type of thing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Al, you will answer this next question first. What plans do you foresee in the usage of Mallard Lake Forest Preserve, and what is the time frame?
Well, that was just up for discussion today at the Forest Preserve meeting. They were talking about setting long-term priorities, long-term goals with a timeline, but they didn't have an answer or they didn't have it established as of yet. Mallard Lake has many, many different opportunities, but I think it needs to be studied with a needs assessment by the local residents to find out what they need, what they want, what they desire, but also what the Forest Preserve is able to do within financial constraints that just make a simple, easy decision, but it'll be very complex because everybody wants different things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Shannon, what plans do you foresee in the usage of Mallard Lake Forest Preserve and what time frame?
The Forest Preserve has a needs assessment study where they reached out to the community that's 20 years old about Mallard Lake and Hawk Hollow. We've got the money set aside to do something with that. It just has not, it's fully funded, the ideas that were presented 20 years ago. And that would include amenities like trails and other things that go with enjoying nature, although for sure not another nature center up this far. What we've done already is improve the parking lot, because you have to think ahead. You can't put in more trails or more hiking fields or more activity places without a place for people to park when they come to use those. So we've already got the parking infrastructure built, and it is on our agenda for the coming year to take a look at redoing the needs assessment study so that we can make sure that the things that were discussed 20 years ago are ready to go now. And I would expect that we will see improvements in Hawk Hollow coming within the next year to 18 months, no matter who gets on the board.
Thank you. Okay, Shannon, this is a question for you. This is going to be our last question tonight. What is your position on pay and pension for Forest Preserve District Commissioners?
I believe that commissioners should be paid and that Forest Preserve salaries should be equal to those of the county board. The work we do is equally important, but we have one commissioner for each district where the county board has 3. I also believe that in order to get qualified people who are willing to devote the time that you need, those people should be paid. So I have not taken a pension. I have voted to reduce salaries, so in addition to that, I have voluntarily given back 6% of my gross salary to a scholarship fund that pays for transportation for schools and seniors and handicaps, pays for buses to take them to our various programs around the county, and I will continue to do that even though I voted to reduce our salaries. Thank you.
Okay. Are you done? Okay, thank you. Al, same question. What is your position on pay and pension for Forest Preserve District Commissioners?
Well, first off, the state controls the pension rules on this position. I will not be taking a pension. As far as the pay goes, I think there are some things that need to be cleared up at the Forest Preserve level and probably should be at the county level. It's called ghost payrolling. Some commissioners don't show up and they get paid irregardless if they show up. The way we did it in West Chicago was we looked at the number of meetings that a alderman would attend, and it was 4. We divide that by the annual pay, so you get a pay if you show. If you don't show up, you don't get paid. And that's the way it should work, in my mind. No more ghost payrolling.
Okay, thank you. Well, we actually do have time for one more. This is the last question, really.
Now you're sure?
So Al, you can go first. What's your position on raising taxes to purchase more land for the Forest Preserve District?
Well, there's $30 million left in the land acquisition fund, which should hold us over for at least a couple of years. But what I think we really need to do is, if once that money's near the end of the spending term, is put it up for a referendum and let the voters decide. It's easy for me to sit up here and say, I think I know what this voter wants, I think I know what this voter wants, and I have my own personal opinion. But I'm not up here to represent Al Murphy. I'm up here to represent District 6. And as one commissioner out of the 6, it should be put up for the whole county to vote on as to whether there needs to be another land referendum to raise money for land purchases. One of the things you also have to keep in mind is most, if not all, of the top quality land in the county is already taken by the Forest Preserve or owned by park districts or has houses on it.
Okay, thank you. Shannon, same question.
The Forest Preserve has about $22 million left in our land acquisition, and we have chunks of land that we're looking at to buy, and I am always in favor of increasing our land holdings because once land is developed, it can never get undeveloped. So we need to buy it when it's available. However, we have no plans to come forward with another referendum to get more money to buy land. When or if we come forward with another referendum in somewhere in the next 10 years, it will be to get money to improve our infrastructure. We have bridges and buildings and picnic areas that are 50 years old and really need help right now. So I don't see us at any point in the future coming forward to ask for more money to buy land. You'll see us coming forward to get more money to improve the bridges and picnic shelters so that people can continue to enjoy the preserves.
Thank you. Okay, it is time for our closing statements. Evening's gone by fast, don't you think? Al Murphy will be giving his closing statement first.
I think Shannon and I both agree that the preserves need to be maintained, cared for future generations, and the future generations after that. It's how we go about paying for them is where we really differ. I've expressed myself that I probably am overly cost conscious, but I would make great use of your tax dollars, manage it to the best of my ability, and I think I would leave the preserves a better place for today's generation and tomorrow's. Thank you.
Thank you. Shannon?
So the Forest Preserve District owns 12% of the land in DuPage County, and that is a huge investment. My formal education, which includes certificates in woodland stewardship, a master's degree in business administration, a doctorate in adult education, and more, combined with my old-fashioned work ethic, my lifelong love of the outdoors, and my genuine concern for public accountability, all combined to make me uniquely qualified for this particular position in government. In June, I wrote an annual report of my first year on the board. Copies of it are available outside, and I hope you will take one. Reading my report will give you an idea of the kind of concrete accomplishments and positive changes I've made during my first term. When you read about the variety of activities that are involved in serving as your Forest Preserve Commissioner, I believe you will agree with me that protecting our investment in land is too important to leave to chance or to party politics. And that's why I ask for you to vote for me, for Shannon Burns, for a second term as your Forest Preserve Commissioner in District 6. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank the audience for wonderful questions. I'd like to thank the timers for their work. Thank you. Great job, guys. I want to remind the candidates that you signed an agreement that no voice, image, or other duplication of this forum may be used as in any campaign advertising. I want to remind the audience to visit www.vote411.com to look up or .org. I'm sorry, vote411.org to review not only these candidates, but all the candidates that are going to be up for election this fall. And finally, I would like to encourage you to learn more about the League of Women Voters by visiting their website at www.lwvrb.org. Thank you. And Diana, do you have a couple remarks to say?
Just wanted to thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Terrific job, Ginger.
Thank you.
Everybody give her a hand. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you again to our candidates and our audience and Lake Park, and also for the refreshments that they provided right outside the door. Take some cookies home. Early voting starts October 20th. Please, everybody, tell 3 friends, neighbors, associates, whatever. Tell them that you were here tonight. Tell them what you heard. Tell them to go out and vote. All right, and don't forget to vote November 4th. Thanks again.